In every journey of growth, there's a moment before the moment. A moment when everything is still, when the world is quiet, and all you have is a spark inside you, waiting to awaken. It's a spark you may not always see, a spark others may overlook, but it never disappears. It grows in silence, gathers strength in the shadows, and prepares you for something greater. And then, the first crack appears. A crack in old habits, a crack in old beliefs, a crack in the story you were told about your limits. That crack widens, your perspective shifts, your vision sharpens, and suddenly, there's no going back. Because once you see your potential, you cannot deny it. The spark becomes a surge, the surge becomes a wave, and the wave becomes a burst of pure possibility, breaking through every layer of doubt, every barrier, every shadow that once held you down. In that burst, something new emerges, a new identity, a new posture, a new sense of purpose. You stand taller, clearer, stronger. And from that moment on, you don't walk into the future the same way. You step forward with confidence, with intention, with the power to transform not just your work, but your life. This is your awakening. This is where your transformation begins. Welcome to Episode 7, Leading Change in Real Time. In this episode, we step out of the models and into the daily reality of leadership. Because change doesn't succeed in big moments, it succeeds in the rhythm, the cadence of what leaders do every single day. You're going to learn the operating rhythm that keeps alignment tight, momentum strong, and friction low, even when the pressure rises. This is where change stops being theoretical and becomes operational. Most change efforts don't fail because the strategy was wrong. They fail because leaders never built the rhythm to make the strategy real. Change isn't powered by quarterly updates or annual planning. It's powered by what leaders do every day, every week, every month. When the rhythm is weak, barriers stack up, alignment slips, and teams start improvising in ways that quietly pull the transformation off course. But when a leader builds the right operating cadence, the right meetings, the right checks, the right flow of communication, everything stabilizes. Friction drops, execution sharpens, teams feel supported instead of overwhelmed. This episode matters because it gives you the system leaders use to turn change from something they announce into something their organization can actually live. Every successful transformation has a heartbeat, and that heartbeat is the leader's operating cadence. Most leaders think change fails because of resistance, or capability, or culture, but more often it fails because there is no rhythm holding it together. A transformation is not a project, it's a living system, and every living system needs a stable pulse. Daily stabilizers are the micro touch points that keep teams aligned in real time. 5-minute gut checks, friction detection, quick resets before small issues become big ones. Weekly alignment is where teams reconnect the work to the strategy. What moved? What stalled? What friction appeared? Where do we need to reinforce? Monthly course correction is where leaders step back and look at the system itself, capability, culture, execution, and now performance intelligence. Are we still moving in the right direction? Where is drift forming? What needs to be adjusted? And then there's the quarterly system review, the leadership moment that determines whether a transformation accelerates or collapses. This is where leaders examine the entire engine, execution, capability, culture, and PI. It's not about what happened, it's about what's emerging. When leaders operate with cadence, change becomes predictable. When cadence is missing, change becomes chaos. The operating rhythm isn't a meeting schedule, it's the pulse of transformation, the discipline that makes progress inevitable. Alignment meetings are not updates, they're not status reports. They're the moment where the entire system snaps back into clarity. Most organizations run meetings that simply replay the past: what happened last week, what didn't move, what problems people already know about. That isn't alignment, that's reporting. True alignment meetings operate like a reset button for the organization. They ensure that everyone is pointed in the same direction, breathing the same priorities, and pulling on the same rope. Here's what separates high performing alignment from the noise. First, they're brief but powerful. Leaders enter the room knowing exactly what they're solving. Where are we going? What must move now? What needs help? There's no wandering, no drift. Second, alignment meetings are forward focused. The discussion stays anchored on what must happen next, not a recap of what already occurred. This is where performance intelligence becomes a force multiplier, because the predictive signals tell leaders where friction is forming before it erupts. Third, decisions are made in the room. No, we'll follow up later. No endless parking lots. Real alignment happens when barriers are removed on the spot and commitments are made face to face. Finally, alignment meetings end with a single source of truth. Everyone walks out knowing the top priority, the real risks, the next required actions, the support they owe others, the timeline for follow through. That clarity is what keeps a change initiative from drifting into chaos. When done right, alignment meetings don't just keep people informed, they keep the entire system synchronized, stable, and moving as one. It's great too. One of the fastest ways to accelerate a transformation is to remove barriers quickly, not eventually, not after a committee discussion, not once the pain becomes unbearable, but immediately. Most change efforts don't fail because the ideas are wrong. They fail because teams hit barriers they can't clear, and eventually they stop trying. Every day that a barrier lingers, execution slows, morale erodes, and resistance quietly grows. Barriers aren't just obstacles, they're signals. Signals that the system isn't supporting the behavior you're asking people to deliver. Signals that alignment is breaking down. Signals that capability is being stretched to its limit. When leaders remove barriers fast, something powerful happens. Teams begin to trust the process. Silence turns into transparency. Hesitation turns into momentum. People stop working around problems and start surfacing them. And that's the difference between a transformation that drags and a transformation that accelerates. If you want speed, if you want consistency, if you want belief, you remove barriers fast. Running PI-based stand-ups. PI-based stand-ups are not status meetings. They're early warning systems that allow leaders and teams to detect drift, friction, or misalignment before they escalate. Traditional stand-ups focus on tasks. PI stand-ups focus on signals, the subtle, behavioral, and performance indicators that reveal how healthy the system truly is. The purpose is simple: to create a fast, disciplined rhythm where teams surface barriers immediately, leaders respond quickly, and the system stays aligned in real time. The entire PI stand-up runs in 5 minutes, structured around 3 core questions. 1. Signals. What friction, hesitation, or micro delays did we see since yesterday? This is the heart of PI, noticing what others overlook. 2. Impact. What part of the system does this affect? Execution, capability, culture, or reinforcement? This keeps conversations grounded in the model. 3. Action. Who removes the barrier and by when? Fast, precise ownership prevents friction from becoming a trend. Unlike traditional meetings, PI stand-ups demand no storytelling, no status rundowns, no long discussions, No excuses or blame, just signals, diagnosis, action. And because the rhythm repeats every day, teams develop a sense of operational vigilance, a habit of noticing stress, drift, and misalignment while problems are still small. PI-based stand-ups are the single fastest way to keep a transformation stable because they create a real-time feedback loop between the people doing the work and the leaders responsible for enabling it. When done consistently, they turn small barriers into quick wins and keep the system healthy long after the initial change effort fades. Resistance doesn't grow because people dislike change. It grows because people don't know what to expect. Communication rhythms solve that. Daily updates prevent drift, small signals that anchor the team and reduce confusion before it starts. Weekly alignment restores direction, connecting dots, addressing friction, and reinforcing priorities. Monthly communication elevates perspective, giving people the why, the bigger picture, and the reassurance that the strategy is still sound. When communication becomes rhythmic, predictable, and steady, the organization stops guessing, anxiety drops, rumors fade, people lean in instead of pulling back. Change accelerates not because leaders say more, but because leaders say the right things at the right time in a rhythm the team can trust. There's a myth inside organizations that consistency requires control, that the only way to keep a team aligned is to hover, check in constantly, and monitor every task. But real consistency doesn't come from micromanaging people. It comes from building a system that makes alignment the default. Leaders who micromanage don't do it because they enjoy it. They do it because the system doesn't give them visibility. When they can't see what's happening, they feel like they have no choice but to step in. Performance intelligence flips that dynamic. Instead of leaders chasing updates, the system surfaces the signals automatically. Instead of pressure, we use cadence, a predictable rhythm of daily touchpoints, weekly alignment, and monthly recalibration. This frees leaders from monitoring tasks and instead lets them focus on clearing obstacles, reinforcing behaviors, and supporting their teams. People feel trusted, leaders stay informed, consistency is preserved, not by control, but by clarity. High-performing cultures don't rely on supervision. They rely on systems, rhythms, and shared expectations that guide behavior even when the leader isn't in the room. When you build consistency into the engine, micromanagement becomes unnecessary, and excellence becomes normal. Structure is what protects a transformation when everything else becomes unpredictable. And that's why the weekly change operating rhythm matters so much. Most organizations fail not because they lack talent, but because their leaders don't use a predictable cadence to stabilize the work. Without a rhythm, people drift, issues stay hidden, performance becomes reactive. This template gives leaders a weekly operating system, a simple, repeatable pattern that ensures every team stays aligned, focused, and supported. Each week has a heartbeat, daily touchpoints to confirm progress, barrier removal blocks to keep work unblocked, and a PI signal check to detect drift before it spreads. This rhythm is not about control, it's about clarity. It creates consistency without micromanaging, structure without pressure, and alignment without the chaos of constant firefighting. In the next slides, I'll show you how to populate this template and how to use it to keep change stable week after week. Because sustainable transformation isn't built on effort, it's built on rhythm. Here's what a real week looks like inside a high-performing change team, the kind that doesn't chase problems, it stays ahead of them. Monday, alignment and intent setting. On Monday morning, the team begins with a 20-minute alignment huddle. No storytelling, no status theater, just clarity. They pull up the weekly operating rhythm dashboard, the same framework you've learned throughout this series. Together, they confirm 3 things. 1, what has to be true by Friday to stay on path? 2, where friction already appeared last week? 3, who needs support before anything becomes a barrier? Instead of starting the week with guesses or assumptions, the team enters Monday with shared intent. No competing priorities, no hidden conflicts. Everyone is rowing in the same direction. Tuesday, barrier removal and fast decisions. Tuesday is not for meetings, it's for clearing the runway. By Tuesday, the team expects friction. They expect blockers. But unlike typical organizations, they don't wait for someone to escalate them. Performance intelligence flags 3 early signals. A team that slowed its response time by 12%. A workflow jam forming behind one approval step. A quiet hesitation in a cross-functional partner. Instead of ignoring these as normal, the change team moves immediately. They diagnose the bottleneck, remove the barrier, reallocate support, reset the path. Within hours, momentum is restored. This is why high-performing organizations move faster, not because they work harder, but because they remove friction before it multiplies. Wednesday, midweek PI stand-up. Wednesday is Truth Day. The midweek PI stand-up is short, sharp, and grounded in data. Signals, what changed since Monday? Patterns, what's emerging for next week? Strain, where is the system stretching too far? Risks, what must be addressed before it becomes a Thursday or Friday surprise? The team isn't reacting, they're anticipating. And by midweek, most teams in other organizations are already falling behind. But this team is accelerating, synchronized, and stable. Thursday, integration and coaching moments. Thursday is the day leaders build capability, not pressure. The team shifts focus from execution to development. This is where they coach a team through a change friction point, help a manager handle a resistance moment, strengthen cross-functional cohesion, reinforce behavioral standards, correct quiet cultural drift before it spreads. This is how the system gets stronger each week. Most organizations only build capability in emergencies. High-performing teams build capability before emergencies ever appear. Friday, outcomes plus momentum reset. Friday closes the loop and sets up next week's success. The team conducts a 15 to 20-minute outcomes review. What did we accomplish? Where did we maintain momentum? Where did we lose it, and why? What signals matter for next week? What micro wins should be celebrated to reinforce culture? They share the wins. They surface the truth. They adjust next week's plan. By Friday afternoon, the team finishes with confidence, not exhaustion. They're not burned out. They're not behind. They're not overwhelmed. This rhythm becomes a flywheel, a weekly cadence that compounds into long-term transformation. Every high-performing change team runs on rhythm, not randomness, and this is the tool that keeps that rhythm alive. The Change Operating Rhythm Master template is your weekly command center, the single document that aligns priorities, flags barriers, tracks PI signals, and keeps everyone moving in the same direction. Most organizations fail not because their strategy is bad, but because their operating rhythm is inconsistent. Leaders change priorities midweek. Teams don't close the loop. Issues get buried. Work gets stuck. This template solves that problem by giving you 5 built-in disciplines. 1. Daily clarity. Every morning starts with the same alignment questions. 2. Weekly synchronization. Teams lock priorities, commitments, and dependencies. 3. PI-driven insights. Early signals get captured before they escalate. 4. Barrier removal tracking. Issues are diagnosed and cleared fast. 5. Leadership follow-through. The system reinforces consistency without micromanaging. When leaders use this template every week, change stops being chaotic and becomes predictable. This is the master tool for keeping transformation stable, no matter how hectic the environment becomes. As we conclude episode 6, take a moment to recognize the significance of the work you've completed. You now have the full architecture of the integrated change engine, a system used by the most effective transformation leaders to drive clarity, stability, and sustained performance. Very few leaders reach this level of visibility, You can now diagnose execution without guesswork, strengthen capability before strain becomes failure, reinforce culture with intention, and read PI signals early enough to stay ahead of disruption. This is the point where leadership shifts from managing change to operating it. You now understand how the engine works, how each dimension influences the others, and how alignment creates momentum that lasts. In the next episode, we take this capability into real time. Episode 7 focuses on the operating rhythm, the cadence, routines, and leadership habits that keep the engine aligned under pressure and maintain momentum during complex, fast-moving transformation environments. You have the model. Next, you'll learn how to run it with precision.